guys, before I start this week's Handheld Friday, I wanted to take a moment and say, no, unfortunately, I cannot travel through time, which means that my Triforce DS Lite is not something that will be released in November of 2011. It was actually released in November of 2007. So I'm not a Time Lord. My police box is the exact same size on the inside as it is on the outside. So having said that, I can now move into what this week's handheld actually is, and that is a gold Game Boy Advance. Now, this is a Pokemon Center Game Boy Advance from the New York Pokemon Center back before they turned it into Nintendo World, which I appreciate. I love Nintendo World. But this Game Boy Advance is gold. It's got a little silhouette of Pichu and Pikachu on the front of it, and it features all the things that you may or may not have loved about the original Game Boy Advance. The handheld prior to the Game Boy Advance was the Game Boy Color, which only featured an 8-bit processor. And the Game Boy Advance features a 32-bit processor, meaning all those great Game Boy Advance games that have been released can be played on this. And you're in luck because this also plays original Game Boy games and Game Boy Color games. Yes! I know that I was very upset whenever I found out my DS Lite would not do that. This Game Boy Advance was released in 2001 alongside the original Game Boy Advance, and it was only available at the Pokemon Center in New York. Limited quantities, limited color, you get the idea, everybody wants one. I am kind of a backlight snob now. This doesn't really fall into the category of original retro Game Boy, and it also doesn't have the backlighting that I have become so used to in newer handhelds. So I'm a little torn about this. This is the only Game Boy Advance that I have. I don't really play it that much. It's mostly for a collector's item, but that means it's kept in really good shape. I mean, you can see this screen has no scratches whatsoever. The paint job is spectacular. I might as well have never even taken it out of the box except to stare at lovingly and maybe hug a little bit once in a while. So if you love Pokemon, this is a great handheld to have. If you missed the release in 2001, you can find one on eBay probably pretty easily. So yeah, that's it for this week, and join me next week and see what else I have in my collection.